Hello, hello. Thanks everybody for joining. Pardon me. So Chris, who has been one of the main organizers of this, Chris has agreed to kind of donate her expertise and experience in helping with managers and other key volunteer roles, which is a massive help because it takes a village to get these teams and club moving in the right direction and staying moving in the right direction. Alyssa Coates, who's also on the call right now, has also agreed to kind of be the coordinator for treasurers within the club as well. So Chris and Alyssa have worked together to kind of go over with a fine-tooth comb the managers and treasurers handbooks and other pertinent documentation that will help guide volunteers in those positions, throughout the entire process at the various points of the season. We also have, let's see, looks like Jennifer is on the call as well. So Jennifer and Daphne are two of our three in-office NYSA support staff. Carolyn Gross being the other. So Jennifer is the registrar for NYSA, and by proxy, as you know, we are part of NYSA also for sound. So anytime when you received your welcome email with registration instructions for managers, when you submit tournament rosters, those will be largely handled by Jennifer Fowler, who is a rock star. Also on the call, our field scheduler for the association and for the club, and team rep, I think for two teams, Daphne Chow. She's again one of the rock stars where I don't know that the club or the association would be able to survive without. So thank you both, and I know Carolyn's not on the call, but thank you, Carolyn, who does all the bookkeeping and tracks the ins and outs of all the financial progress through the club and association. So without the three of them, this would not be as successful as it is and on a growth path that we are on. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart to all of those people.
So Brandon, I think I have the right document here. And this is something that's new this year that we had in the past, but we hadn't updated it with our new leadership structure in a while.
Yeah, so obviously the title is right there for everybody, conflict resolution protocol. So one thing that I think that we as just kind of the youth soccer industry has gotten away from is empowering players to be involved in the problem solving and conflict resolution process. So when it comes to things like playing time or position on the field, or issues with teammates, I feel very strongly that the player should feel empowered to pursue resolution with their issue. So as you can see with this flow chart here, it's there's a lot going on, but it's relatively simple. It's player working with the coach to resolve the issue, and obviously, I say obviously, but different issues are going to require different involvement from different parties, whether it's player, parent, coach, director, so on and so forth. But player working with the coach to resolve the issue, simple answer, yes, it was resolved. Follow that pathway and things are good to go. And if it's not, then parent involvement. Obviously in this. Oh, somebody have a question? Sorry, I got some feedback in my headphones. So having the parent involved in the resolution process as well is obviously important. To varying degrees of issues. Is sometimes the parent should be involved early, and sometimes we do want to encourage the player to work with the coach, as based on their comfort level of discussing playing time issues and things like that. So you see the comfortable discussing with the coach. If they are, the parent and the player can, to work with the coach, to find the appropriate time and environment to address the issue. And I think that that's very important, is highlighting those two words, the time and environment. We as coaches sometimes really need some time to decompress after a game or a tournament, or even sometimes a training session. Especially if your coach has multiple teams, I'll tell you from experience, decades of experience, coaching 2 or 3 teams consecutively in training sessions, you get to the 4.5 hour mark. You need a little bit of time to decompress, because you've dealt with 45 to 50 kids who
Wash your hands.
were kind of on their outlet, and sometimes there's a little bit of chaos that we need to come down from before being able to have like an intelligent conversation that helps address the issue that you're actually facing. So the appropriate time and environment, scheduling for me is massive. So not just kind of having a field to parking lot conversation off the cuff. If the issue is important and deserves extra attention, I think scheduling a time to speak with your coach is important. And so, yep, if we're able to resolve it with the coach, again, the path with the yes answer of resolution is relatively simple. We get to the issue resolved pretty quickly. And if the answer to resolving with the coach, or the comfort level of discussing it with the coach, if the answer is no, we've added a pretty defined kind of hierarchy of leadership now. So with U13 and below, the director of coaching will be David Hartshorn. His his contact information will be more readily available and published more clearly on the website in the next 48 hours. David is a fantastic human being, who is also a fantastic coach and a great leader. So I think his involvement in the conflict resolution process is going to be incredibly helpful for the younger ages. Similar sentiments, or same sentiments for Walt Antoniuk. He is going to be the director of coaching, overseeing the U14 through U19 age groups. And then me as the director of soccer, will be obviously involved as needed. And so we really want to try part of this idea, and this flow chart is not only to empower your player and you as parents to be a little bit more direct and upfront with the coaching staff, but also to empower the coaching staff. We have a varying degree of experience within our staff. Some coaches are new to club soccer. Some coaches have tons of experience in club soccer, and I also want them. I don't want them to feel skipped over when it comes to dealing with conflict, being playing time, or again, player to player interactions, and even sometimes like just the interactions of the coach themselves. I think there was a number of instances last year throughout all the age groups where feedback that I was receiving from parent groups was important for me for it to be on my radar. But when I went to then go discuss with the coaches in these situations, it really took them by surprise. And I think having them involved, at least initially, in the process of, hey, this is what we're seeing versus what we're expecting, can we discuss this a little bit further? I think that's important for them, because it helps them it helps the coach buy into the process and maybe the growth that's required to sustain or to create a high performance environment for all the players and the families. So that's, yeah, I mean, I think that's important that every step of the way that all parties feel involved in the process and not overlooked or spoken for, as we work towards kind of that harmonious outcome, hopefully the harmonious outcome where the kids are feeling great about their experience, the parents, families are feeling great about their experience, and the coaches and directors are also feeling great about everybody's experience.
And I think a reason why we bring this to a managers meeting specifically is because a lot of parents are going to come to you and they're going to want to know, who do I talk to? And we want to preserve your relationship with your friends on the sideline and not put you in a position where you're having to get involved in things. Except obviously if they're related to your mandatory reporter status for safe sport and concussions and cardiac, obviously that's a different story. But if it's playtime or what position or developmental goals type of stuff, we want you to be able to redirect those families to the proper channels and then disengage if you can, just to help kind of ease the burden on you and also to maintain that Zen sideline situation.
Chris, maybe you and I will talk offline about this. One thing that just popped into my mind as I was reading through that is the involvement of the team rep as well. So team representatives for those of you who may not know is a person that on the team that any parent can go to with, I would say typically it's bigger issues. It's issues that multiple families are having, whether it's with whatever it is. So the cadence of team rep meetings this year is going to be probably once every 2 months. Just to last year, I felt in my reflection it was a bit too infrequent, and there were team level issues that could have been recognized sooner, had the communication lines been a little bit more open between team reps and myself. And so this year, that's going to be an important part of this, at least the communication line, maybe not just the conflict resolution line, but definitely with the communication piece. And so there are a number of teams that do not yet have team reps, and I can work to identify those and reach out to coaches and the managers to encourage those teams to find somebody that will represent them. Because last year there was, I mean, one issue that really sticks out in my mind. It snowballed and it snowballed and it snowballed, and I had parents that I think they were hesitant to reach out to me regarding the issue, and I want to try and create an environment where that isn't the case. That hesitation is removed, and the team rep can feel, again, I use the word empowered a lot, empowered to be the voice of the team, and come for big things, come directly to me to create an immediate path to resolution. So, Chris, I'll work with you tomorrow to kind of yeah, add additional thoughts there.
Yeah, I definitely, one of my best practices when I have a team rep every year is I ask them at the beginning of the year, please remember to not just represent the club to us, but also represent us to the club. That's a two-way representation. So I ask them, when you know a meeting's coming up, please send a note on TeamSnap and ask folks if they want you to bring anything to the meeting. So hopefully if you figure out who your team rep is and you see them on the sidelines in the next couple of weeks at a tournament or something, be like, hey, I hear you all might have a meeting soon. Don't forget to reach out to the team and see if there's anything they want you to bring to the club at that meeting. That way we're kind of funneling things, and not everything's an emergency, but that's a great way to redirect stuff so that the manager isn't just the mental health therapist for everybody all the time on your own. Does that make sense? I hope for everyone.
Yes.
Great. So that, I think, is that everything? Before I turn it over to Daphne and Jennifer to talk a little bit about some new operational things. Was there anything else, Brandon, that you wanted veteran managers to know that we're doing a little bit differently this year? From a soccer standpoint?
Oops, sorry. I guess I was muted. No, I don't think there's anything really there. No, if something else pops into my head, I'll definitely jump back in at an appropriate moment. So
Sweet. So then the next thing on our agenda was to find out what's new, specifically from the NYSA and the operations side of things. So Jennifer and Daphne, I was going to share my screen a little bit to talk about the RMA process. But also we have in the handbook area in the folders under team managers, there's a whole step-by-step with pictures and everything. I don't know if Daphne put that together or Jennifer, or who did, but I know we fielded a few questions about this process. So if that's probably Jennifer who wants to speak to that, if you're comfortable.
Sure. I'll wait. I guess I'll wait to see the document.
All right. Handbooks and policies. So in your team managers folder, RMA instructions.
Oh yeah. So this is pretty straightforward if you are able to follow the directions, starting with step 1 and basically going to the North Shore Youth Soccer Association website and making sure you guys should have some type of profile in there, because that's where you register and pay for your kids. So on that, there'll be a tab there saying volunteer. You'll click on that, select, team manager, and just walk through the steps of, all the information, accepting all these fun things. And then it'll bring you to your trainings of the US soccer website, where you'll do your concussion and cardiac arrest, which is now called Intro to Safety, and then your Save Sport, which is unfortunately the longest thing ever, sadly. So you'll complete those 2 courses, and then everything should sync up back to the North Shore website, where it'll give you step by step. Like once it's completed, it'll give you a check mark and say it's verified. So you'll do that, and then please don't forget about the very, very last step. You won't be able to click this box until your certificates have been verified, but you'll want to click on the risk status. That's the very last step, and that's where you'll enter in your social security number, and then Washington Youth Soccer will run the background check on you. So that's the ins and outs of the fun RMA.
And the new part of that for returning managers is just that instead of that living in our Sound Affinity platform, it's on the NYSA side of things in the registration platform, versus where we used to do that in Affinity, and our handbook was from the state.
Yeah.
Also, make sure your names match with whatever you have for your, because I think Jennifer, a lot of times it's because their names don't match, right? Like,
yeah,
someone,
please
yeah,
make sure
someone
your
might use
first...
Rich for something, but his full name is Richard. So then on the background check, it needs to be Richard. So then in your US soccer learning courses, you need to have your full name if you want it to sync in that last step.
Yep.
Oh, right. And I'm seeing questions in the chat about where in US, once you get signed up in US soccer learning, where to go to find out which courses you're supposed to do, I believe.
Each link in the NYSA website, it just says begin training, and it should take you to the right one. But that's...
Justin, you just recently went through that. Did you find that to be the case? Oh, I didn't mean to put
Sorry,
Justin on the spot.
sorry, had to figure out how to unmute myself.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. It is a little bit confusing, especially as a first timer. I'm gonna say you kind of have to think about it backwards, because the links I didn't feel took me directly to the training courses. But if you just keep trying to look for like the courses that are available, it will literally say a introduction, and the introductory course is what you need for both the concussion protocol, and it kind of says that. I know I was trying to pull up another screen to
Available.
find it myself.
So is it under, yeah, my account's not a good one because I have coaching licenses. So
Somebody just,
we'll figure out. Safeguarding. Thank you, Isaiah, for the win. Perfect. And then Ian has a question about checking to see if you do need to redo. There should be booster courses each year. They're not quite as long. But it says in April you went through Affinity and you completed them all, and you can't tell if they connected or not. So that might be if you go to the NYSA, when you see those check boxes, did you happen to already try that pathway?
I haven't gone there yet. This is actually the first time I'd heard that anything might be different from what I had done in the past. It just didn't feel the same as it had the years before, and this may be why that there's a new system, and I'm hoping I don't have to redo the courses.
You don't have
shouldn't
Hold on.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to redo the courses. Like, as long as you go into the NYSA website and make sure that you click on, you know, you're the manager, and then everything should link up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and then if anyone did not get the link to where all of those the RMA handbook and all the step-by-step stuff, let me know and I'll repaste it in there, because if you joined late, it's further up in the chat. And then Daphne, for scheduling, I don't know that you have anything different this year to report on the NYSA versus Sound FC front, do you?
No, I don't think so. When the RCL schedule comes out, once I get the games scheduled, I think I'm just going to enter them into Affinity, and then I'll email everyone when their games are up, rather than emailing managers with their game times and having them input it. It's a little easier for me. And then if things need to be adjusted, managers can do it if needed.
Sweet.
Yeah, for new managers, that probably doesn't make any sense, but you'll get it when it happens.
Perfect.
Daphne, do you want to touch on sharing the link to the
Yes,
Google
that's right.
Doc?
So all of you guys should have gotten at this point like a weekly field schedule from me. You also probably haven't had a chance to read through the manager's handbook in detail, which is okay. But there is a section where it talks about weekly field schedules and like practices and stuff. But that field schedule is just for the managers to be able to enter in their meeting or their training details into TeamSnap. It's not to be forwarded on to every single family member on your team for them to see the entire schedule. So it's really just for you to enter in the details so families know where to go and when. I have had someone request for trying to find out information or like contact information for carpooling, like outside of, I guess, their own team, which would be great, but we can't give out contact information of families that's not on our team. So each team has their own TeamSnap, and everyone has access to families or to parents on that TeamSnap. But we can't give out, like I have an 09 daughter and I have a 12 daughter. I can't give the 12 families all the contact information for all the 09 families to see if they want to carpool. Like, we just can't do that. I talked to Brandon earlier today, and I think we're working on we're trying to figure out something that would help families reach out and connect if they do want to carpool. Oh, Chris.
We do have the Sound FC member forum on Facebook, which
Oh.
got sent out with the team formation. Hopefully your coaches shared that link in their kickoff. I know Brandon has put it in quite a few of his communications, but that is a private group where people can use that to be like, I left my water bottle or my ball or my jacket, or does anybody want to trade jerseys, or I need a carpool buddy. And that's a great place for those conversations to happen. I think that way people are opting in to sharing their
Yeah.
personal information instead of the club, especially, we go through all these background checks for a reason. We can't just give access to random people of whose kids are going to be where and when. That just wouldn't be appropriate, obviously. I will pull the Sound FC member forum Facebook private group link up and paste that into the chat for everyone here. And hopefully you can share that with your families as well and use it. It is for you.
Are you posting that in the chat? Is that what you said?
I'm going to pull it up now. Also, yes, obviously, if you also go to the Sound FC, if you go to the Sound FC Facebook page, it should, under groups, have that option, and it'll ask you some questions just to verify. There might be some buddies on there that haven't unsubscribed over the years that have left the club, so just be aware we haven't called that, but.
And one more thing on the fields topic that I'd like to just kind of throw out there to everybody is it's important to remember that we are still the product of a merged entity that happened, gosh, what, 6 years ago now? 7, 6, 7?
Lost track.
Yeah, we're two clubs, one based in the North Shore School District and one based in the Edmonds School District came together, and we are Sound FC is a different name, but still a byproduct of that merger. And field allocations are split between both geographic locations. So there are times of the year where teams are going to be more heavily based. Their training sessions are going to be more heavily based in the North Shore School District area, and other times throughout the year where the fields are going to be more plentiful in the Edmonds School District area. And we don't have ultimate control over that. We try. Daphne does a great job of trying to provide as much equity as is possible within some of the different limitations that are imposed on us by our vendors throughout the year. But ultimately, we are a club that has a large service area, and so we just, we have to be okay, and this is kind of the nature of where we're at. We have to be okay with sometimes having to travel longer distances to get to training sessions, and it's one of those things where it's a constant source of feedback, and we hear it, we interpret it, and I know Daphne works her tail off to try and accommodate requests from coaches who are passing on requests from families. But ultimately, it's kind of one of those situations where we do the best with what we have, and we recognize that we're never going to make everybody happy, even though we're going to try. And we appreciate you as managers passing on the word that while we'll make every effort to keep as many people happy as possible with where they're training, it's not always possible.
Thanks. I will also say it's not as easy as I think people think it might be. Like, I get a lot of questions from parents asking, why can't you just put us at WSF? And it's not as simple when you have a coach that has 3 teams who has to be at the same field as a coach because the B team and the A team want to practice together once a week. And then that coach doesn't get off of work until 5 o'clock. And they also need a grass field for an upcoming tournament. Like, there are so many factors that go into scheduling that I think a lot of people don't realize. But I mean, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Ask your
but
coach.
Please, yeah, well, yes. And then if you guys want to reach out to me, you have the scheduler email address. My personal email address is in the TeamSnap only because that's my TeamSnap alias for as a team manager. But I'd appreciate it if you guys keep it to my scheduler email address.
Church and state, we get it.
Yeah, thanks.
So I actually have a manager, have a question about what might be new this year is goalkeeper training and a separate team snap or not for goalkeepers versus us as managers knowing to look at your schedule and then adding goalkeepers to our team. Is that
right? So last season we had a goalkeeper coach and there was a separate goalkeeper training. So I know early on some managers just put goalkeeper training into their own team's team snap, which is fine because especially at the younger ages, I think you have like more kids who are wanting to be goalkeepers, but that goalkeeper team snap, the goalkeeper coach or I would update the training details. So anyone who's in that team snap would know where to go. So it makes the team's overall team snap less busy, I guess. Like there's just less stuff to have to deal with if you have a team that has dedicated goalkeepers. But yeah, if not, I think we're still working on a goalkeeper coach though, right?
Yeah, I was actually on the phone with one of the main candidates today, who's recovering from a surgery which prevented him from coming out this week to work with my goalkeeper on the 2009 girls, kind of as a working interview. So it's one of those positions that, just for everybody's knowledge, there's not a lot of them out there, and to be to have high expectations for me, not only as the director of the club, but also as a player who was a goalkeeper all of their life. I have high expectations for the position of goalkeeper coach. So I feel like the extra layer of scrutiny that I bring to the selection is valuable. It takes more time, especially when there's been kind of a revolving door with the position for outside circumstances outside of the club. One with their full-time day job and his predecessor because of adding another member to their family. It's just been one of those things where there's been a little bit of a lack of stability, and without kind of some context, that could be scary, I suppose. But again, I'm working really hard to make sure we're getting the right person into that position to help grow that side of the club as well. But yes, we will have a dedicated goalkeeper team snap page, or team snap team, if you will, for full-time goalkeepers or half-time goalkeepers that are dedicated to the position, and then also opportunities for the modified age groups where it's kind of more of a position that's played by a committee throughout the year.
So to answer Susan's question in the chat, I think once you get a schedule from Daphne that says goalkeepers are new this week, I think at that point you check with your goalkeepers and say, hey, are you already on this team snap thing? If not, reach out to, for now, Brandon is the one who will add people to that, I believe, to team snap groups for now. And then just make sure until they're on that team snap that you're getting them the info, whether you're putting it in team snap or just sending them a separate email, whatever works for your sanity and what makes your life easier, honestly. Thank you for letting us know the update on goalkeepers. Were there any other questions for Brandon about what's new this year on Sound FC, or for Daphne and Jennifer about operations at club and association level, before we do a very quick Northwest Conference chat and then we let our veterans off the hook and then we talk very 101? Don't see any hands. Oh,
I have a random question. I don't know if this is good for everyone or not, but I was wondering for, we have like a tournament this weekend. I was wondering, like, is there a default like uniform that we wear and then one's kind of like backup if there's the same color, or how do we think about that for like tournaments or anything this summer?
yeah. So I'm going to just share my screen and we'll go through this together. In the handbook folder, Oop. So when you go to the main and you go to team formation, I believe, I can't see because this thing is in the way. There's the uniform package. Your uniform coordinator should have shared this with your team, but if they didn't, there's this real sexy document that Lisa, our club level uniform coordinator, put together, which shows your default away kit, blue, red, your home match kit, white, red, white. And as the home team, it is always your burden to change if the refs declare a conflict. So typically, teams should be alerted that at every single game on the bench, not in your car, but in your bag, both kits need to be present at all times for matches. Does that make sense? And then I can show you in TeamSnap a cute little thing that does not work on the app on your phone, but it will definitely work for you if you are logging in at this level on a laptop. If you go to preferences, you can actually set the default home and away uniforms here. And then every time you add a game, once you tell it you're the home team, it'll populate that with the uniform default. And we always list it as jersey, shorts, and socks. So white, red, white is a white jersey, red short, and a white sock.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And if people have questions later, or you're still formulating, or you don't know yet, please know that, you know, we're here for you anytime. Just give us a holler. The only quickie thing to note for returning managers, the last thing is that if your team is going to be in Northwest Conference, I have gleaned for you, lined up 2 mentors that are specific experts in Northwest Conference needs, and they have both graciously agreed to answer questions. They're both in the TeamSnap managers roster. So Kim Plumas and Julie Krause are happy to help you if you get hung up on something or you don't know what that process should look like. They both recently said a lot of things have changed for that process in the last few years, and it's confusing for them, even as Julie's been through this with 3 kids now. So don't hesitate for a second to reach out to either of them if you have a Northwest Conference team. In addition,
Cal,
And just to provide another layer to that, so the Northwest Conference is basically the Northwest Conference of USU Soccer National League. If you don't know what we're talking about, your team is probably not involved in it. And I think it's only 11-a-side teams, so U13s and above. And it's a separate league outside of RCL, which is our typical league that most, if not all, of our teams will compete in.
Chris, I just had a reminder, I think, for all managers who are submitting rosters for tournaments this summer. Please, if possible, submit those to me. This is Jennifer, by Tuesday evening. And then if you have any guest players, please put them in bold and put guest next to the side. And Chris, I think I'm going to send you a document tomorrow with team IDs. When it says team ID, that's the team ID for the entire team. So that it helps me out when you guys have guest players that you bold them and then put their own team ID. So I know where to look to find them, because there's 34 teams. And if you just put Joe Smith, you know, I don't know what team he's from. He could be from, you know, a different age group, you know, the A team, the B team, you know, whatever. So that's super helpful. And I hope that somewhere that document can be shared with the team IDs, because I know it's a bit confusing.
thank you, Jennifer.
I
And then
wonder,
Yeah,
Chris, if we can. I wonder if we can put that in each team's team snap, like not
Sure.
necessarily title, but somewhere in their description, so it's easily readily available just on the team snap site.
So we'll get a document with everybody's team ID and we will add it to the manager handbook folder, and then we'll send a note on the Team Snap letting everyone know when those are ready. Does that help?
Yeah, and I think we could also, in the media section of the managers team Snap, we can upload documents there as well, so it can be, people can have access to it in multiple locations.
Copy that. And then
Yeah.
for a lot of families have been asked, or not families, a lot of managers on the Team Snap lately have been asking or reaching out back channel about whether or not they should be able to see their team when they log into Affinity attached to them. And I told them, you're working on getting it done by September. But that's probably not the real answer. What is the update on that for folks?
Brandon, is there a list somewhere? I mean, if I had a straight list of managers for each team, then I can easily add them into Affinity sometime in
Are
the
you,
next.
are you not, is the Google Doc not shared with you? So we have, I have a document titled adult rosters. I thought you were on the shared list. If you're not, then you're on there. I'll share it with you again, Jennifer.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
Yep.
I think also she can't connect managers that haven't completed RMA, right?
Right.
Mom, you
That's-
muted.
Yeah, you need to make sure that you're going through the NYSA website, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to add you. And that's the same that goes for coaches. I just worked with a coach today who hadn't gone through the North Shore Youth Soccer website. And so now he's all connected and ready to go.
Sweet. So I'll tell folks to give you another week or so if they have already finished all their certifications, that hopefully within a week you'll have those up there for them.
Yeah. And let me know if you guys are missing some players on your teams, because I worked with Brandon last Friday to upload all the teams into Affinity, but ran into some snags because we have players with multiple applications out through Washington Youth Soccer. So I'm gonna have to resync those teams, and there was a lot of them, so I haven't gotten to resync them. So just send me a quick email if you think that you're missing someone once you get access. So
Got it. So check your Affinity roster and make sure it matches your Team Snap roster.
yeah.
Sweet. All right. Veteran managers are just folks who don't want to hang out and start with the basics. If you have any other questions before you peel off, we'll probably also let Brandon off the hook. Unless you want to hang out with us. Any other questions before those folks float? No. Okay. Well,
Hey.
sweet.
Step in the right direction.
I hope, Daphne, you saw all the love you were getting in the chat for the work that you do on the schedule, because we know that you're juggling all the balls and none of it is personal, and we will make sure the families on our teams know that as well.
I did. Thank you. I just don't know how to react to it. Like, I don't know how people are doing that. So
We're just sending you love.
I'll give
Alright.
it a
oh no, I
thumb-
meant like I
thumbs
didn't
up
know how
there.
to do the whole like liking or
Yep.
you know.
The
Yeah.
emoji thing. Here,
Yes,
I'm
I don't know
gonna
how
put
to
a
do that.
I'm gonna put a big thumbs up in the chat. That is actually Daphne working through me. All right, everybody. If you need anything, please proper channels. I appreciate all of you and volunteering to help your teams. Is an amazing thing, and it helps us grow and succeed. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and best of luck to you, your players, and your teams this year.
Oh, good. Alyssa's staying with me too. Alyssa's my better half that knows all things about treasurers. So if you come bearing any treasury or budget related questions, you'll have both of us here to answer. I could start with these player card things. Oh, snap. I should have brought mine with me or had them near me for this conversation, but I handed them off to somebody already. So the player cards are US Youth Soccer. So there's US Soccer, which owns like the Olympic team And below US Soccer is US Club and US Youth Soccer, and we belong to US Youth Soccer. And they issue very official player cards for every single one of our players who are registered. They ladder up to the actual US Olympic team through US Soccer. So those cards are portable little entities that they need in order to verify their eligibility for a match. And often if they travel, like I had a teammate who went to Peru and needed to take a picture of his card with him to Peru so that he could scrimmage with teams there. So you'll get these, Jennifer, the registrar, I believe, or someone at NYSA will put a call out in August and let us know that our cards are ready to be picked up. And you will go to the NYSA office, you'll find your folder, and in your folder will be a set of sheets. And it'll have a blue card and a white card. And what you'll need to do as a manager, or obviously any manager duties, I highly recommend delegating things if you don't want to do them and have all your families engaged. You're more than welcome to ask somebody else to do this for you. But you take each card, like Erica's showing, and they're all going to be perforated. It's a very special paper that Jennifer gets from the Olympics. I'm just going to keep throwing the word Olympics in there because they are very official documents. You will take the perforations and make each card their own thing, and then you'll go wherever your favorite laminating facility is, whether it's somebody you know or Kinko's or wherever, and each card has to be laminated. And then you'll punch a hole in a corner and then put them on a D-ring. And it'll cost about $12.50-ish if you want to put that in your team budget and charge for that, or find a family who will donate those 13 large. Those cards have to be at every match. And there's different coaches like it done different ways. So connect with your coach and say, do you want to hold the official set of cards? Or do you want us to have somebody every match who walks out to the head ref with the match reports and the cards? And just work with your coach on what their preference is. And a lot of it's going to depend on the age group and your coach's experience. Often during our regular season, the referees don't even look at those cards because the exact duplicate image of verification will show up on the match report. So I think in 4 years, I haven't had to actually whip those cards out, but we still have to have them. And I hope that that answers the question about this whole retrieve your cards, laminate them, and assemble them for the team. That is part of the manager's duties, but you can obviously delegate that to someone else. So way TMI, you probably didn't want all that detail, but did that answer your question, I hope, about the cards?
I've had refs check for cards, so
You have?
yeah,
that
quite a few actually. Yeah, for RCL and for state.
Oh, for state cup. Oh, yeah.
But even for RCL, they check sometimes. So I would make sure you have them.
Yeah, they have to be there either way. And then what I have done in the past, also, Jennifer's been very flexible with me on this, is if your age group is one where your coaches have already identified that there will be a lot of guest playing happening, Jennifer may or may not be able to create a duplicate set of cards that can be laminated. And what I have done is give that extra duplicate set to the other team manager in my age group so that they have a full set. Because what'll happen is Friday night at 9 o'clock, everybody will have explosive diarrhea and there's a game Saturday morning and they need all the player cards. And I'm not driving to Bothell from here to give them their cards. So I just make sure the other manager in my age group, if my age group does a lot of this horse trading stuff, has a full set of laminated cards on a D-ring or on an O-ring. I hope
I have a quick
Jennifer-
question. Oh, sorry to interrupt. For the player card, so from what I remember is that each player, there's 2 cards. There's like a blue one and a grayish one, and then one's the one that like goes to the coach, and then there's the extra one. And so what do you like to do with that extra one? Do you give it to the players? Is that the one you're suggesting to give to the other team? I'm never quite sure what to do with that extra card since we only use the one official one with our player cards.
I've done it two different ways. One, depending on the age and the maturity of your players, and what kind of player they are. If they're the type of player that goes places and needs their card to do things, if they travel internationally, I have given them that white one and said, this is yours, but if you lose it, you're screwed. I don't have a copy, even though I know Jennifer can print me another copy. And then they lose them. But otherwise, I just keep them in my folders as a backup. Daphne, how about you? What do you
Well,
do?
I was gonna say, because I know Carol's coach is Jim. So if Jim just prefers to hang on to them himself, I would give him the one that says member card. I can't remember if it's blue or white, but the one that says member card. And then the second set says member pass. So I would, like when my daughter was at NSC and the coach wanted to hold on to them himself, I just held on to the member passes and then he held on to the member cards. But I mean, my daughter was a lot younger, so it wasn't like a situation where she held on to it herself. But you could also use that member pass. Like if you know that like whatever players on your teams are going to be guest playing a lot for the 08s or something, the member pass is what you would give to them to guest play.
Okay, got it. All right. So because in the past, I think actually I just held on. The Jim gets the cards for every game, and then I just had the extras, and then just shredded them at the end of the season because we never ever used them. So, but I was always kind of wondering, what am I supposed to do with these extra cards? So
yeah, it's if they guest play.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. Thanks. That's actually a good tip because I'm thinking since we just have the one goalkeeper for our team, that
Right.
wouldn't be a bad idea to get the other team's goalkeeper cards just in case we have quick switcheroos that need to be done at the last minute.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for the tip.
And then Sharon asked if digital player cards are an option, and yes.
Yeah, so the digital player cards, there is a link to those in the handbook. That is if there is an emergency and you you don't have your cards and you're at a match and the referee's like, I need to see them. You can go over with your phone, launch that page, and your match will show up and your digital version of your player cards will be there, and they need to accept that. I also have that bookmarked on my phone because we do have to enter the scores into the official Affinity system within 24 hours of every match. And I use the digital player card interface to do that because it's just more intuitive to me. And any yellow or red cards or cautions or whatever ejections you would enter into there as well. So that is a great link to grab out of the handbook and keep saved on your phone. That is one of my pro tips. How do you feel about that, Daphne? Any other tips about the digital player cards?
I don't know. I've never used them.
Oh, I had to use them once. Again, I think once they started adding the headshots to the rosters a little bit for COVID, I haven't had to have physical cards. They're always physically there in the bottom of my kid's stinky bag, but
Right.
That's about it. Entering scores and stuff. So yeah, I can do that. There's few things about scores. So I think
Chris, sorry, can I say one more thing about the player cards really super quick?
Of course.
I am going to be most likely printing all of those player cards unless for some very strange reason you're going out of town and you need them. I will not be printing player cards because you don't need them for the summer until the very last week in August, because you will not need them until your very first RCL game. So that'll still give you basically like a week to laminate the cards. So I will probably send just a broad message out somehow to everybody that, okay, all your cards are here. It's the NYSA office, just if anybody doesn't know, is located kind of back behind McClendon's kind of kitty corner. So that's going to be where you're going to go to pick up your cards, and they'll just be sitting right outside of our NYSA office door in an envelope with the coach's name and the age group. So
Yeah, it'll be really tight because our CL season starts right after Labor Day, and a lot of folks like that week as a vacation. So if the cards are ready and you're out of town, by all means, find a delegate, a deputy of some sort on your team, and ask them very nicely if they'll go get the cards for you, and maybe even separate them and laminate the blue one or the, Erica, is it the blue or the white on the deer on the ring? I don't know. It'll say on there.
And
And-
you don't have to go during office hours because it sits outside the door. So you can go anytime, really.
You
Yeah.
laminated the white ones.
The white ones. There you go. So Susan asked about if there's more info about entering scores. Just that the only mandatory thing is that the scores have to be entered into Affinity by each team and the referees within 24 hours of the match, and they all have to be the same entry. And if something happens, and this has happened to me many times, where the two teams enter something differently, it'll pop up in Affinity as a conflict, and then the state will reach out and try to figure out where the discrepancy is. And the instructions for entering those are in the team manager handbook. And that's only affecting the RCL season. I'm sure Northwest Conference had. Do any of the managers that are on here right now have a Northwest Conference team? Because
I
it-
do.
who does? Susan does.
Susan.
Susan.
All right, got it.
And I think we might have a team as well. I need to confirm with our coach.
Oh, got it. Your registration then is due within a few days for Northwest
Oh,
Conference. Hopefully, I would escalate that to an urgent question so that you can
okay.
get that completed. I don't know what their score entering requirements are. I'm sure they're similar.
I know it's really complicated. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the team manager for my 09 who does Northwest Conference, and I know our manager gets very frustrated about having to enter scores. He says it's very not intuitive, so I would probably look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, Julie would be my first stop, Julie Kraus, when you get to that point. But definitely, absolutely get your coach to explicitly let you know if you're participating in that or not, because it's a bit of a double duty.
Luckily, we have until November to figure out entering scores because that's when the first games are.
Yay. Yeah, but registration, as Susan knows, can be
Painful. And it's
But
due by
it's
the 24th.
it's an amazing opportunity for your players, so I'm excited for us to have as many as possible. So that is cards, both digital and physical, and scores. So their other thing that's nice about scores is in Team Snap, it's great to have somebody on your team that you designate as the person who's in charge of entering the live updates into Team Snap, especially for families who have multiple kids and they can't be at both kids' games, then they just get the live updates. So if you can find a really generous parent who's willing to manage that for you, and they can enter the scores on Team Snap for you as they're happening, and little comments and stuff like that, that's also a nice thing to have. Were there any other questions related to scores? Yay. Any other questions about a manager and some best practices or where to find something? I have some pro tips. Oh, what is the Washington Youth Soccer number in the roster template? So those were those team numbers that we were talking about earlier that you used to be able to get from Affinity. And I had been telling people to get them from Affinity, but then I didn't realize that Brandon pulled them all off. So those numbers are your team's official number. And Jennifer is saying that we will get a document that we will upload to the Team Snap media, and we'll let everyone know in the Team Snap chat that that's uploaded, so you can go get your number. And then when you have guest players from another team, you'll need to make sure that their team's number shows up there as well. And again, you want to bold any guest players, and that's only for the summer tournaments. When you're in RCL season and you have guest players, that all gets done within the Affinity roster system, which is very different than the summer tournament roster system. Is that something we should probably dive into, is those two different processes?
Yes, please. As I said earlier, I've just been kind of finding my way, and people talk about affinity, and now I know what that is, but like, how do I do a roster, and what do I do, and a roster here and a roster there? And I will be honest, I have not read all 28 pages of the handbook yet, because I'm a teacher and school is over in a week, so maybe after that. But since we're here, I'd love some walkthroughs. That would be awesome.
Very fair. And yes, so Jennifer, am I correct that the Washington Youth Soccer number is the team number? Those are intended to be the same numbers, correct, in the summer tournament rosters?
Yes, it is in the summer tournament rosters.
So in the summer, it's kind of the Wild West in the summer because it really depends on what tournaments you're in and what their registration processes are. Some are using Gotsport, some are super analog, like the Jamborees, like it just really depends. So, but to make it consistent for Jennifer's peace of mind, because Jennifer's our registrar and has to certify that the people you're taking to that tournament are covered by our insurance, that they're a real player, that they're the actual age group they're supposed to be. So those things during the summer get done by Jennifer to make sure that we have some cohesion. And so we have a Google document format for those. Once we're in our official RCL season, that regional club league, which starts at right after Labor Day, then it all turns over to being an affinity roster, which I will demonstrate on here. So you'll log in to Affinity. Boop. I recommend bookmarking this on every device you have, everywhere you go. And eventually logging in. So you'll see in Affinity, once you've completed all your background jazz and Jennifer knows you exist, you should see your team and the upcoming season under your name under teams. So technically RCL season is a tournament until the State Cup, which is a tournament, and I'm using air quotes with that. And you'll see when you click on tournament and schedules, the RCL season that your team has been registered for. And again, I hope everyone saw that note. Do not pay for that. They're going to send you a note that says it's time to pay for RCL, but the association is taking care of that. So you'll have your roster here under tournament app specific to RCL player roster. Boom. And all your players should be there. And let's say 5 of them break legs and you need to start borrowing players from other teams. This is only during the RCL season. You will manage your rosters a week by week basis using this system every week. And all of the explanations for how to do this, to add the player, to sync the roster, to set active players, all of that is spelled out for you in the handbook, I believe.
Yes.
And these are only players from Sound FC that are eligible to play with your team that you can add as guests. In the summer, it's a little looser, but
Chris, if it's not in the manager handbook, then it's in the Washington Youth Soccer admin handbook. I think that's where it is.
yeah, you're right. It's the one that's got the Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
It's the old one, but that system
Yes.
is still the same, even though we haven't been sponsored by Dick's in a while.
So like a tip for new managers, because you're likely going to forget all this by the time September rolls around. When it's time to do it, I would pull out the Washington Youth Soccer admin handbook and go through it when you do it. And then once you do it a couple times, you'll know what you're doing by then.
Yeah, and that'll be again under handbooks, team managers. Where is it? They should be doing a new one.
Yeah.
What is it called?
Admin handbook. You can also find it on the WYS website.
There we go. Yeah, it'll be all this RCL stuff. And then the handbook will be there. I think
the bottom,
maybe we,
right
there it
there,
is,
the
Washington Team Admin Handbook. I have a recommendation. You don't have to do it this way, but every Monday, I have an alarm on my phone every Monday at noon to go into Team Snap. I look at that weekend's games. I see how many people have updated their availability or not. I reach out to my coach and I say, hey, I see 3 players aren't with us this weekend. Do you want guest players? Yes or no? And I'd have that conversation starting Monday, because some coaches want 3 days to think about it and 2 days to horse trade. And then all of a sudden, Friday night at 8 o'clock, they're like, yes, I want these 2 people from this other team we've never worked with before. So start those conversations every Monday. Do you want guest players this weekend? Or work with your coach and figure out what they would prefer the communication is like, but they're juggling a lot, and that's something we can do to prompt them.
Also, if you know a game is going to get rescheduled, let me know right away, or in your team manager account, like where you would go to request a reschedule, do that, because after a game locks, which I think is 24 hours before, once it passes, I can't do anything to it. Like, I have to email Washington Youth Soccer to have them update the game details, and it's kind of a pain. So if we can avoid that, it would be really helpful. I mean, it's fine if it happens, it's not that big of a deal, but like, especially over Christmas break, or not Christmas break, but like in December, a lot of games get rescheduled. And it's easier if I don't have to email Washington Youth Soccer every day to unlock our games.
Yeah. So it looks like, to go backwards to summer tournament stuff. I know you're not Isaiah. You told us earlier who you are, and Isaiah is your player.
Maria.
Maria is asking if those rosters are done by the tournament coordinator or the team manager. So over the summer, if you have a tournament coordinator that is buttoned up and you want them to deal with rosters, definitely work with them on that. Not every team has one. But just communicate with them so you don't both think the other one is doing it.
So I have a question, because earlier it was said that rosters have to get to Jennifer by Tuesday. Is that also the case for RCL? So if you're talking to your coach on Monday and they decide on Friday, like, can you tell about that?
Rosters for RCL season get locked when you bring your match report and you hand it to the referee. So I have had times where I have gotten down to Mount Vernon or wherever, what is it called here? Maple Valley, and the coach is like, we had to change something. And I'm finding a Kinko's and printing a new match report and then walking to the game and handing that to the referee. So for rosters for RCL season, what you bring on the match report for your team is what counts. Because they will not let you handwrite things. You can't scratch off a player and add a new player. You can scratch a player off, but you can't add new players to your roster on the paper on site, because there's no way for that referee to know that that kid does or does not belong to your age group or your club or whatever.
And match reports the same thing as roster.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, match reports.
Oh, this is Sharon. Just something about guest players. Last year, my team ran into trouble because we tried to add guest players from NSC on a Friday, and Brandon said that he had to have the request in by Thursday.
Yeah, if you're moving clubs, you can't. Like, if you're trying to guest play across the association from a different club, you need more notice than that.
Oh, so if we do a sound, like
Yes,
a sound
you
player
can-
to a sound
yeah.
player, it's fine? Okay.
Yes, you
great.
can do that all on your own, because that doesn't require director approval.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sweet. So I think we started to move away from rosters and talk about scheduling. And I think that that is something we should definitely talk about at a very top level of how games get scheduled during the RCL season, because it's fast and furious. It's every weekend, your whole life from September till whenever your tryouts are, basically till your state cup. And it's not as painful as it sounds, I think. So Daphne started to talk about this a little earlier about when the schedule is released. So over the summer, your team is going to play, your coach is going to be sussing out how your team is. And then there's this meeting in August where all the coaches and all the directors get into rooms and try to figure out what division the teams should be playing in to get the appropriate level of competition during the RCL season. And then sometime in August, all your divisions are going to be set and some robot's going to automatically assign you to all of your pairings, meaning who you're going to play and which team will be home and away. That's it. And on what weekend. And then you as a manager should have a good relationship with whatever managers are with any other teams your coach is coaching. I highly recommend a spreadsheet so that you two, however many teams you have, can look across them and look for conflicts, especially if your coach is expected to be in, I don't know, Black Hills one day and Coeur d'Alene the next, or within the same day. Start to identify those things as soon as the dates are out. Daphne takes that information and any home matches, Daphne will work on assigning fields and times and then also eventually referees to that home matches only. So the dates and the opponents and who's home and away comes from Affinity, some robot. You and your managers for your coach should, as quickly as possible, kind of line them all up and look for some obvious issues. And then as Daphne gets closer, it's usually about 2 weeks out, right, Daphne, that you get the home field and kickoff times assigned?
I try to do it sooner than that. I try and do it by month. So like I'll schedule at the end of September, I'll try and get all the October. But I mean, a lot of times it doesn't always happen for whatever reasons. Yeah.
Most coaches, talk to your coach about how they want to do stuff. A lot of them have preferences that make sense. For instance, if your coach has 2 age groups that are a year apart, they will typically want the younger ones to play in the first half of the day and the older ones to play the second half of the day. This is just my experience, but obviously work with your coach on what they're going to want to see happen. And then it's another thing you can do is knowing that can my coach get from Seattle United over to Crossfire in the same day if we do them in the morning and us in the afternoon, or start to try to map that out very loosely, but know that it is not very super precious right away. It's when you get to that 4 to 3 weeks out that you really need to lock things in, and you're expected to reach out to, if you're the home team, you reach out to the other club and confirm that they can make it. You share the rules for that field with them via email, and all of that will happen as you get closer to the game.
Also keep in mind that a lot of these coaches that your opponent coaches, they also coach 2 or 3 teams often. So there's a lot of back and forth with the opponent managers trying to figure out what will work. Because last year, my daughter's coach coached 3 teams, and we had Pac Northwest, who that coach also coached 3 teams. And then, yeah, there's a lot of communication involved. And if you can, like Chris said, if you can have a spreadsheet of your coach's schedule with the other team managers, it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, would anybody, if you want to see an example of what one of those spreadsheets looks like, just let me know and I'll send you a link and you can peek at what we've done, because we keep extensive notes too in there so that we can remind ourselves where we are with something, but also so that the other team sees what we're thinking. And Susan would like an example. So I'll put
sorry to interrupt. A question about that. What I heard you say was like the dates are out, but you don't have specific times. So how can you even figure out if there's going to be a conflict if you don't even have times for when the games are until closer to it?
Well, so, okay. So like, let's say September 4th, right? Walt has a home game with the 07s at home. And then with his other team, the 10s have an away game in Gig Harbor, let's say. Then you would, like, what would be most helpful is to get in touch with the manager for the 10s and say, hey, I see that you guys have an away game in Gig Harbor. Can you reach out and find out what time they're probably going to schedule you for? Because, or it's even something as easy as, like, if he's trying to do both games, then maybe the 07th evening game at home so that he can do a morning game in Gig Harbor. And then once I have a better idea of if I have to schedule the home game in the evening or in the morning, then then I'm not having to change it all the time. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
I'm trying to find my old sample, Susan. I'll get that over to you. Of what that format has looked like in the past for community.
Thank you. If somebody has already done it for me, I'm a teacher. I like to use other things that people have already done because they've mastered it. So I'm happy to look at a copy. Thank you so much.
I will also say that it really depends on what works best for you, because I've seen different spreadsheets that are all organized slightly differently, and it's whatever works best for you and the other team managers and your coach, obviously. Like, some coaches just have a simple Google Doc that, like, just detail everything.
Yeah. That's basically the way to go. And definitely in the past, I've shared mine with you also, just in
Yes.
case you want it. Do you still want folks to, if they have a document like that?
It's helpful, but it's actually more helpful if you just email me with, and it's helpful to to CC the other team manager also, and just say, hey, September 4th, David has an away game in Spokane and a home game in, I don't know, wherever, right? And then it also gives us the option, well, maybe we have to push the home game to Sunday because the Saturday game, he's going to be gone all day.
Yeah.
Is it still true, like the older kids, like the 07s last year all had games on Sunday, and then I think Walt's other team, the 10s, had games on Saturday? So is that still the case, or generally, or not so much?
I think RCL, I don't know. I don't know how RCL manages, like, when they schedule, but you can change a game to be on a Sunday that was originally scheduled for a Saturday, as long as you get agreement from the opponent.
Yeah. And I know coaches often too, something that commonly gets asked of me is they immediately say, I don't want a game the first week of the new year. So they ask me to make sure that we bump it out a week. And another thing is, as many times that you're going to, if you are in a division that has to go to the east side over the pass, trying to get all of those games as early in the season as possible, so that you're not going over the passes after, like, Halloween even. So you can move games. I've had to move a March game into October, and that's fine too. But trying to just kind of look at the landscape and talk with your coach about what they want to see happen and work from there.
So that reminds me also, try not to push all your games out to the end of the season because it makes for a giant mess, especially since in the spring we lose a lot of fields. So I had a couple, and it's understandable because they were high school girls and their season starts a little bit later, but they did some tournaments early on in their season, which meant that they didn't start RCL until, I don't know, I think it was like beginning of middle February. And then you have spring break to contend with. And it ended up getting to the point where it just got so hard to schedule because you have to finish all your RCL games before the start of State Cup. And we also lose so many fields in the spring. So try and not push your games out as late as you can.
So I hope that overview of what it means to kind of do the scheduling process helps demystify it a little bit, if you know kind of what the thinking is behind all the different considerations. Is anyone completely overwhelmed and throwing their laptop out of a window right now? No? Awesome. Good.
Sorry, I have a question about Gottsport and Rush Cup. Is it necessary? Because so when we did it last year, I didn't update our roster in Gottsport. I just brought the printed copy to Rush Cup that day that I checked in. and they didn't say anything about it. So I'm not really sure that we even have to mess with Gotsport after registration.
Might not have been our Gotsport tournament last year.
It
my-
was because I had to,
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever tournaments that we did last summer where it used Gotsport, I never used the roster function in Gotsport. I always just bring the printed roster to the check-in, and it always seemed to suffice. So I'm not sure if
It depends on the tournament. You should look at what their check-in requirements are gonna be and just, that's the safest
go
thing.
with that. Okay.
I'm looking right now at the rules. I don't know if check-in will be in the rules necessarily. That typically comes a little closer.
Yeah. So last year they sent it as like an email to all the team managers saying, here are your check-in requirements. And everyone should probably also make note of the medical release forms. Some tournaments will require them, some won't, but you should always bring them just to be safe. Because Rush Cup, I remember, does require, and they will look at it and check to make sure every player has one.
Can I show everybody a nice trick for that?
Yes.
Don't look at my inbox. It's nasty. There we go. So in Affinity, once hopefully you're added to your team. Let's assume you finished your RMA and you've been added to your team, and you log in and you go to your team info. And here's your team, your lovely, beautiful team. If you click on player application forms, it will download for you every medical form digitally for your whole team. And as a favor to your anybody who's going to be using your players as guest players, I would email them that as well so that they have a copy on hand at all times. And
Are
also,
those updated? I'm sorry to interrupt. Are those actually updated? Because when I looked at some, I had to get some anyway, long story, but I saw a lot of NAs and I'm like, it didn't look like those were complete. And I had every parent fill out a paper copy, and I have pictures of paper copy and paper copies and PDFs of the paper copy. So are they the same or are they not the same?
they should be the
They're-
official ones you did at registration. Oh, sorry. Dad.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, so part of the problem with that is, one, it's not signed, and some tournaments want them signed. So I ended up just printing them out and then having the manager or going to practice with like a pen and having parents sign it. But I think, and Jennifer can probably, she's the expert on this, when they fill out registration, if like there are some things that they can leave blank, and I think that's why it shows up as NA on our medical release form. Is that right, Jennifer?
Yeah, that's true. So if they like for some reason didn't have their medical card with them and they're just putting like NA, or they just put
Right.
0000, that's what's going to show up on the form. So
Right. And depending how picky the tournament is, Rush Cup was the only one that I remember being really picky, because there was a coach who didn't realize he needed his medical release forms and they wouldn't check him in. So
yeah, and
So if I
yeah,
have-
the parents would have to, parents need to sign those if you print them out from there.
So if I have them all, parents hand filled them out and all signed them, those are going to be good, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you have two paths. You can either do it the analog or the digital style, but always defer to what the tournament asks for the check-in procedure. And also, it doesn't hurt to have an awareness of who on your team has certain allergies, especially for latex and your first aid kit. I always try to make sure my coach knows if there's any kids who have a specific allergy. We don't want to share like tons of HIPAA information that doesn't apply to us anyways, technically HIPAA, but in general, you want to have an awareness of some severe allergy needs of your kids and make sure your coach knows those, and that you would get from the medical forms. Alexandra says that's amazing, but I don't know which part was amazing.
The part of printing them out, I think.
yeah, I think
Printing
Oh,
them out. I have never known that I could do that, and that's really helpful to know.
I keep them on my phone. I have at least one medical professional on every team, and I make them keep a copy on their phone, especially my children's hospital trauma nurse, who is the manager now, and then my coach for sure, digital copies, and the manager for any team that typically borrows my players a lot, I make sure they have it as well.
Chris, can you go back to your affinity page for one of your teams?
Love this thing. Why I have to log into it 50 times a day. This page?
Sorry, I just wanted to mention, I know this is in the handbook, but for like any new manager, once I promise I will make sure that all managers are in there the next 2 weeks, so that you can check this out and look at your team, but to make sure that all your players have photos in there, and if they don't, they need to upload them, or if you want a photo changed, I'm the only one that can delete the old photo, and then I can let you know and you can add the new one. So that just came to mind as something.
So yeah, all the photos. And they should also, some kids like to go in and their parents will put a really cute action shot. That would not meet the definition. So if you go to your roster and you see something that doesn't look basically like a mugshot or a passport worthy thing, you're going to have Jennifer delete it for you and take a new one, because it needs to, for the player card, it has to fit a certain formula.
Yeah, and if they can be like halfway recognizable, like hopefully the photo isn't like 4 years old and doesn't look anything like that child anymore, then it would be helpful to get a new updated headshot.
That doesn't look like me anymore when I started doing a lot younger. Anybody else? I'm so sorry. This was a lot of information all at once, and I hope we didn't Justin says. Did we bore you? Does everyone feel like they at least know that if something comes up, they know where to go if they have a question?
I'll come find you on Thursday.
Justin will find me on Thursday. Something that I forgot to tell folks when we were talking about what's new this year, which does affect budgets, but also as a manager, the club this year is providing benches, tents, and game balls and first aid kits. Brandon has negotiated for us to have all of those things from Capelli. They're not quite all in yet, but they were things that I standardly had put into my budget and then collected my team fees. And then I found out we don't have to pay for them. So now I'm going to have a surplus. But I hope now you all know, if you did not hear from your coach already, that they should have received a bench at the coaches meeting the other day. Maybe, maybe not. The tents are going to be coming at some point. They were still negotiating what the co-branding design was going to look like. First aid kits, I don't know yet how stocked those are going to be, so please make sure you have something for yourself through the summer until those come in. If you want to know what a good first aid kit should look like, let me know and I'll connect you with Erica Bender, who's amazing. And she can give you a list of some recommended items. It's going to be ice packs, and tampons for the nosebleeds. So those are things I don't know that all managers know. We were getting those things provided this year. So whose job is it to have all that? Ace Wraps. I recommend every team have an equipment manager, because you cannot do it all, managers. You just can't. You have to delegate some stuff. Break this job up as much as you can. Keep families engaged. The equipment manager would bring the bench, the tent, the game balls, and the first aid kit to every match. If you have a trace camera, which is not something we've talked about yet, but if your team is going to have a trace camera, I recommend having a separate trace camera manager who deals with entering the games and the tracer numbers. I think we're getting a different system this year for traces, but I recommend identifying somebody who can take that on in addition to getting your team rep. Peter, what am I forgetting? Because I know you're here. And I know that you have fielded many, many manager questions over the years, and there's got to be a frequently asked question that we haven't covered that newer managers don't even know to ask yet.
Well, thanks for giving me an in here, Chris. I appreciate you doing all the work to set this up, and Daphne, Jennifer, and everybody else, and all the managers. Thank you so much. There are so many corner cases. The reality is you can't digest it all in one night. Nobody expects you to. Hopefully this has been helpful. I think as Chris said earlier, the most important thing is that you know that you've got a support network out there, right? And things are going to come up, things that you didn't expect. And our hope is to just try and get you up to speed as quickly as we can, and give you people to talk to when something gets a little complicated. So it's natural. You'll learn it. Everybody who's given all this advice tonight has learned through doing. So you'll do the same. And please, anytime if you feel overwhelmed, if you don't know what's going on, just reach out. We're all happy to help. We want you to be successful.
Thank you, Peter. Peter is one of our board members who represents Sound FC currently on the NYSA board, our association's board. And we're very grateful for your service, Peter, the last few years, getting us through our transitions. All right. Well, good thing you all don't charge me by the hour. Alexandra is very grateful. This was helpful. Thank you to Daphne and Jennifer, our staff members who stayed way after hours above and beyond to do this. Also grateful, and Alyssa, who put in hours and hours updating that treasurer handbook. It's not as many pages as the manager handbook, of course, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think you deserve a lot more credit. You three did a lot more with the manager handbook and documents. So thanks for contributing that to the club.
That was Daphne and Jennifer too. I take no credit.
I think we've determined we would be lost without Daphne and Jennifer. So thanks for all you guys do.
You're very welcome.
All right, friends, we love you. We're very grateful for what you're doing for your kids and for the coaches. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.